Good afternoon, everybody, or at whatever time you watch this. I hope everyone is doing well. I know that from all that I'm hearing from phone calls, ones I make personally and ones I'm hearing about from members of your vestry and your wardens who are checking in with everybody, we're doing amazingly well. We've had a number of people who have been sick but are recovering, and so for that we're very grateful. I know that people are being careful and attending to all of the ways that we keep ourselves safe, so we have a ways more to go. I was looking back at some of the things that came from our diocese, and we've been doing this for 2 months now. And I would think that we probably have at least another month to go before we can begin worshiping in the same space together. And so we're going to keep bringing you our worship videos. I am so grateful to the people who have been learning new skills and making use of things that we've always done, but doing it in a new way. It's quite exciting. The choir is going to be having a Zoom conversation tonight to talk about how do we keep singing when singing is one of those things that we're not supposed to be doing together. So, which brings me to a whole bunch of questions that we need as a congregation, as a community of faith, we need to start thinking about. A lot of it comes from things that we always do, things we have always done, starting with we gather. That's because that's what Christians do. When Jesus was around, people gathered to hear him, to hear what he had to say, to be near him, to be with him. The presence of Christ and the presence of one another is why we gather. That's been a no-no. But it's also the quality of it is going to change, because as we come together, we're going to still have to do it keeping each other at arm's length. I hate that. I really hate that. But we can do it. And so there's the gather part. That gathering doesn't look like what it used to. Another thing that we have always done, even 8 o'clockers at time, we sing. At least we sing the doxology, but we sing hymns together. Jesus Christ is risen today. Oh, come all ye faithful, amazing grace. So many of the songs of our heart, we're not supposed to sing together. Singing is one of those really aggressive ways of sending out what's in our lungs. And as we all know, even if you've been tested and gotten a negative test, it's only good until you run into somebody who has the virus. So to stay on the safe side, we have to figure out how do we continue to have music for our worship. We can have our prayer meditation. That's a recorded piece. We can hear Ron at the organ, yay, and we will hear Diane at the piano on Sunday, yay. And we've had a couple of our singers, our lovely section leaders, coming to help lead singing for our videos. We have to look at how we do this. The choir is going to be working on how do we continue to be a choir. So another thing. So the church has always gathered. The church has always sung together. And we Christians, particularly we liturgical Christians, have this other thing that we do, which is to eat together. Not just potlucks, not just for Sunday breakfast, but we come to the Lord's table every time we worship together. And now we're being told that that's not safe. So this has brought up some really big questions in my heart. Who are we as the church if we can't do the things that we've always done? This sounds a little bit like my sermon from last week, but I need to take it a little further. what is the church if we can't do the things that we've always done? Now, a number of years ago, when I had my sabbatical and Peter and I spent 3 months in Scotland, we had an amazing trip up to the Orkney Isles, thanks to a lovely couple that we met at a B&B who invited us. And we were given an extraordinary tour of the amazing archaeological digs and wonders that are there. I don't think you can plant a tulip bulb on Orkney without running into some Neolithic thing. So we saw all kinds of wonderful things. And as we drove around, as our friend Ken Sutherland drove us around, he pointed out that each of the little towns that we went through all had a really nice brand new community center. And he told us that this came from the proceeds of the North Sea oil revenue that Orkney was very blessed to have a significant amount of. So what they had done was to take care of their communities, schools and community centers. And so I asked Ken, I said, so what kind of a safety net do you have for people who are poor in your community? For, what's the poverty level? And he looked at me and he said, we don't have any poverty here. The North Shore oil money was so managed so that no one on Orkney is poor, is destitute. And in my mind, the thing that I thought immediately is, well, what do the churches do if there aren't poor people to help? Which, if I said it out loud, or even if I said it just in my head, I'm sure that I realized quickly that that's a really paltry definition of the church. The church does not exist to merely be an instrument of a social safety net. We do that for other reasons, but it's not why the church exists. But I remember thinking, well, how will people know who the church is if you're not out there doing good works like that, if nobody needs you to do good works? So I have been having this long theological conversation in my head and with anybody who calls me at the moment about who are we? What is the church? And when we come back together, we have an opportunity to think through this in a way that could be really quite exciting. For 2,000 years, I think, the church has sold itself as that institution that will assure your salvation, your place in heaven, that will help you get over being such a sinner. 200 years ago, there was a sermon preached here in New England, first in Massachusetts, and then apparently he liked it so much he did it again in Enfield. The preacher's name was Jonathan Edwards. And the sermon was entitled, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." Doesn't that just make you want to come to church on Sunday morning? Well, yes, if you're convinced that the church is going to help you get past that and get to heaven. But what if the church is meant to be something else? What if the church is meant to be that place that lives up to our lovely mission statement? That it is a place where people come and know that they are beloved. What if the church reformed itself, not as a place known for doing good works, we certainly can do that, and not as a place that helps us get our ticket to heaven punched, but what if we really did some thinking about what does it mean to be a place that is a center for love, gratitude, and joy? It might mean looking at our liturgy. What are the things that we read and say regularly that might give a different message? Now, I'm not talking about changing to where we become happy, clappy, praise band kind of music. That's not who we are. And we don't have to forsake everything that we've done. But when we come back together, I would love for us to have some really important conversations. And I hope we can start this by you putting comments underneath this video on the YouTube channel and give me your thoughts on what is the church meant to be and what can we be, especially since we can't gather, sing, or eat together right now. How do we live into this extraordinary commandment to love one another as Jesus loves us, and to be those who celebrate the goodness and generosity of God, that we are people who celebrate abundance as our, we've just managed to find $2 million to redo the downstairs of our church so that it is available for us and for the community to gather in joy and service. So I think I had a question here on my notes here on the, if the church thought of itself as this place to stop sinners from sinning and to repair a broken world, I wondered, is there any need for church in the kingdom? If that's all it's for, then in the kingdom, I don't think there would be church. But if the church is about joy and it's about celebrating gratitude and finding ways to be instruments of love together, then there will always be a place for that in the world. There will always be a need for it. Because trust me, there are a lot of people out there who could use a shot of "You Are Beloved." So I have a poem for you. I hope this works. I hope this goes together with this. Because these things I've asked you to do, I asked you to think about, are kind of big. This is us doing theology. Whenever we think about God, we're being theologians. Even if it's, God, why are you letting this happen? That's a theological statement. So I'm asking you, what do we know? How do we know it? What do we want to be known for? And this is a poem by Carrie Newcomer called Knowing. There are some questions. There are some answers. The simple ones, the most important ones that cannot be approached or even seen until we go out looking for something else entirely. There is a note to ourselves that will not be found until we have searched for everything new under the sun, until we have followed a hunch and braved enough hope, traced many necessary and unnecessary public and private passages out to their natural ends. Only when we return to where we began, bringing home all that the world has poured in and all that we have poured out, can we lift the lid on the box on the mantle, still there where we left it at the start of it all. And then we can read the unadorned writing traced on rough paper, as holy as parchment. And then, only then, can we carefully fold it, place the words in our pocket, right here over our heart. So until next time, my beloved friends, be well. Please join in this conversation. We need to hear from you about your longings, what you need and hope for from the church, what will help you feel confident in coming back together. This should be a conversation, not something that a few of us make decisions about. So this is your assignment. please leave some comments, give us a call, send an email. We really do need to hear from you about who are we going to be. Love you all. Bye-bye.